is more AstroTurf around this story than a 70s baseball stadium. Stop simping for this communist Chinese company.
Black myth Wukong. Now, look, this started not too long ago.
What is that, like a myth that goes out for cigarettes and doesn't come back?
Oh, no, it's coming for your wallet,
right?
Razor. It's coming for your wallet today. Okay, so let's give everybody a little backstory here. So back in November, IGN wrote an article about Black Myth Wukong's developer. The developer is a company called Game Science. This is a Chinese company that was, they've developed a couple iPhone games along the way, but this is their first big game that's coming out, right? And this article, it talked about how sexist and misogynistic this company was, and it has a history of sexism and complicating its journey to the West, right? And this article has since been debunked several times, most notably by a YouTuber who came out and said, like, look, the person who translated all these things that were supposedly misogynistic and sexist wasn't done by somebody who speaks Chinese natively. If they did speak this Chinese natively, they would have known that that is not the proper translation along the way. Was it rude? Sure. Was it crude? Sure. Was it sexist? No. Was it misogynistic? No. And it really this was the narrative behind the developer, Game Science, pretty much for the last 6-7 months, is that this is a company that is sexist, misogynistic, whatever. And you've seen this ran with over and over again on Kotaku, Polygon, any media outlet, and they always credit this article, the IGN article, as the history of sexist and misogynistic behavior, right? But it's all been fabricated, okay? It's just a giant lie.
Well, certainly been fabricated.
Well, there have been some early reviews of Black Myth Wukong as well, and it is scored very well by those who have scored the game, with the lone exception primarily being Screen Rant. Now, Razor, did you see this last week when the Screen Rant review came out?
No.
Okay.
Screen Rant's track record, though, for Christ's sake, come on.
Well,
a long and storied history of crippling retardation.
Well, one of the reasons why they gave it a 3 out of 5 was its lack of diversity and inclusion. And we're talking about a game that's built around essentially monkey men fighting other mythical creatures, and there's not enough diversity and inclusion in this game. So they gave it a 3 out of 5, and that's pretty much the lowest score. It drove down like the average score across the board, right? So there's been that. And then there was some other talk about, like, when they sent out the codes to play back Black Myth Wukong, the company itself, the PR company, said, like, hey, we pretty much just want you to talk about our game, right? We don't want you to talk about anything Chinese related. If you're going to talk about, you don't need to mention politics. You don't need to mention feminist propaganda. We just want you to talk about our game. They said, don't mention COVID. Don't mention
kind of bad. Let's be real.
Your damn studio's owned by communist China. How the hell are you going to demand that? Man, I know people are defending this developer, but you know what? You people can blow me. There is more AstroTurf around this story than a 70s baseball stadium. Stop simping for this fucking communist Chinese company and their shitty game about a stupid fucking monkey. Stop this shit. Do you people not realize that these game companies have caught on to the fact that you will jump to their reflexive defense and do viral marketing for their shit games? They caught on to this a long fucking time ago. Stop playing into their hands. Jesus Christ. Fuck. Am I the only person who said, I said this a long time ago when Cyberpunk 2077 did this? Witcher 3 did this shit. And was CD Projekt anti-woke? Were they, like, seriously, were they based? No, they wound up simping for all this crap too when the ESG money came, the ESG truck basically parked the fucking money up to their house. That's what I'm seeing here. This is AstroTurfed on their part. And the fact that, like, Screen Rant and all the usual suspects who usually signal boost this stuff and wind up making these games successful basically by getting a bunch of people to give it free publicity are involved in this, to me, that just ratifies this this entire idea. I don't know. You guys, if you enjoyed the game, that's great, but it's a stupid fucking Chinese monkey game. Who gives a shit? Anyway.
I just want to put my 2 cents in. Like, I understand you shouldn't talk politics in gaming. That should just be like the thing, the general gist of it. Like, why do you have to bring real world stuff into a video game? But the fact that they're going out and saying, "Hey, if you play this game, you
I didn't.
cannot do this."
For the record, guys, I didn't say the game was bad. It's a game about. It's like a Chinese monkey game. Like this game would have a very, very limited appeal if there had not been a huge controversy, a big incumbent controversy around it. You clearly can see, and if I sat here and thought about it, I could think of a number of examples. Cyberpunk is one I can immediately think of. Witcher's another one. I think there was one around Elden Ring too, wasn't there? Like a slight controversy about lack of wokeness or diversity or something. There's been a number of games the last several years where, it's, oh, that's a problem. And the media kind of jumps on it, but not hard, but it's like just enough to sort of get that reflex action happening from consumers. You're like, oh, what are you talking about? We don't want that kind of diversity in the games. And then actually, Hogwarts, right? Hogwarts Legacy. There was trans stuff in that. There were pronoun people in that. It wasn't an anti-woke game at all. But it was like, you got this reflexive defensive action from gamers and from consumers. And it wound up basically signal boosting the game. A Harry Potter game. I mean, granted, Harry Potter, very, very successful, but I don't think that game is as successful as it wound up being if that doesn't happen. It was like it was negative viral marketing. That
was my whole thing. Because of the boycott, which is why I pointed this out actually this morning right here. Let me blow this up for you guys, saying, bit odd seeing everyone praise Black Myth for defeating DEI, whilst the last year doing a boycott on Hogwarts Legacy. And the thing is, no one's actually talking about the gameplay. I want to know, is the gameplay actually good? Because everyone's just going, oh, the game, it beats DEI, blah, blah, blah. No, you guys are just doing Hogwarts Legacy, but in reverse this time. Instead of the boycott saying, I'll show them. It's like, how's the game?
I think there's multiple layers to this, right? And you're right. There is, yes. How does the game play, right? Is the game fun? And by most accounts, it's exceptionally good, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it is good. I'm sure the gameplay is good. But man, if you sat down with none of this controversy and you just said, all right, dude, it's about like ancient Chinese monkey history, I'm thinking pretty limited appeal. Right? I'm not thinking you could look at a screenshot of this and go, yeah, I want to play that as bad as I want to play Elder Scrolls or whatever popular game, Fallout, whatever the heck.
I kind of feel like this is a niche game because I was talking to some of the guys this morning and I was like, so why did you buy this game? How do you think of this game? And they're like, we bought it because we want to experience the Chinese mythology and things like that, specifically for like where the setting is of the game and things like that. And that's fine. Like if you want to play the game, obviously go play the game, but everyone's screaming about how amazing it is. It's like, did you even play it though? Like, why are you like amplifying this without even actually playing it for yourself? That's kind of silly.
So getting back to kind of what we were talking about though, is there was this article from IGN, right? And they went out there and you saw, I mentioned how this narrative was repeated over and over and over again. And it all referenced this, the idea of sexism.
One of the
and you know
reasons it feels AstroTurfed a little bit is they're kind of hitting on the same point.
Right. Now, I don't think that you're wrong, Razor. And I don't think you're wrong either, Blabs. I think that there is definitely a response, whether it's IGN doing the best marketing for Black Myth Wukong by saying, hey, this is sexist, this is misogynistic, and people going like, hey, you know what? Fuck them. Fuck IGN. I'm gonna buy it. And it's
such a weird hill to die on too, because it's like, do you think you're defeating DEI by simping for a Chinese game, China being the primary funder of DEI in America?
Well, okay, and there's a level to that as well, right? Here's that other layer. The idea that you're willing to side with a communist company over siding with communist game journalists, right? So, would you rather side with the communist blue-haired, nose ring mafia, as Smash put it, or would you rather side with an actual communist company from China? You know,
who is funding the DEI, ESG, and Bridge. Like they're behind a bunch of that funding. They're behind funding for BlackRock. They're behind funding for all this stuff, all these DEI initiatives. Like, take that. It's Pequods and Queequegs from Deus Ex Invisible War, where the two rival coffee companies are they're warring against each other, and it turns out they're both owned by the Illuminati in that game. Like, that's what I'm witnessing here.
Well, the response to this has been overwhelming as people have come in and bought this game by the millions, and it didn't set a record for most players playing a game at once, but it did set a record for most for a single player.
Yeah,
as it had 2.2 million people playing it in the last 24 hours, which, if you look at the top records over on Steam, puts it between Pal World and PUBG when it first launched. So, you know, and obviously you saw that game Banana earlier this year, but it beats out, like, we're talking about like all-time great games, PUBG, Pal World, which had its peak and then it kind of flashed out. As you know, the Pal World, I think people are gonna look back on that as kind of a flash in the pan, you know.
Yeah.
But Counter-Strike 2,
I had no idea Baldur's Gate 3 beat out Cyberpunk for concurrent players.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But this game in particular, I mean, it's a very big deal, and there's a strong response to what has been happening. And as pointed out by David, says the hype for Wukong comes from way before the SBI detected and other pushes against DEI. People loved how the game looked, and the Souls genre is very popular. I truly believe it would have been successful anyway. Thanks, David. Appreciate that. And
2.2 million successful. Plus, is it 2.2 million people playing? Most of those people are Chinese, and we all know communists aren't people. So
right. Well, as pointed out, this is not a Souls-like game. As pointed out by the developer.
Joke. It's not really a joke, but
right. This is it's like an action adventure game, as the developer likes to put it. So it's not a Souls-like. It's not meant to be exceptionally hard along the way. But the response to this has been ridiculously overwhelming. But so let's take a step back. What about that IGN article? They were clearly wrong along the way. Have they retracted that article? Well, we saw it earlier. The obvious
have they retracted their Alien Isolation review? Come on, please.
Well, the person who wrote this article has gone private along the way. And they went private. And her name is Rebecca Valentine. Pronouns in the bio, obviously, along the way, and proudly a member of the IGN union, says no longer on Twitter, but although so much so that they're no longer on Twitter that they feel the need to private their account just today. And I was like, who is this person? And I also was blocked, even though I've never spoken to this person in my life. So, all right, but no retraction.
I'm curious. I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna say, I bet you anything. It's Blockbot, totally.
Yeah, but so no retraction at all from this, and you know that's kind of where it's at. And Kongman came in with this tweet along the way, and you know this could interesting. It says Black Myth Wukong has become the most played single player game of all time on Steam with over 2 million concurrent players. Looks like you don't need to be a game.
I'm more blocked than one of Louis Anderson's arteries. Fantastic.
You're blocked as well. Blabs, are you blocked?
I don't know. What's her last name again?
Her name is just
Rebecca with a K, an A, and an H for some reason.
Yeah, but what's the last name?
Valentine.
Oh,
there you go.
Hilarious last name.
Just curious.
As in not a whole lot of love. Never gets.
Yes.
No, I'm not blocked. Just protected.
Yeah, they have gone protected. Victor says you don't have to support either. Save your money, invest in your family until these industries collapse. Play classic games until then. There you go, Victor. Let them know. Alpha came in, says with the 5, says niche in the West. Sure, Journey to the West is Asia's Lord of the Rings. Also, China funds ESG and DEI to the tune of billions to further denigrate the West. Thank you, Alpha. Appreciate that.
Listen, like, if it's a great game, and like from what I've seen, it looks fun and, you know, like great for the people who bought it. But for me personally, I'm like, if it's an actual great game, celebrate it. Don't just celebrate it because it's, to the DEI people. And that's my whole thing with like the Hogwarts Legacy shit. And like, let's be real, so many people on our side did that, and you're like, yeah, Hogwarts Legacy suck at trans people. It's like, there's literally a tranny in there. Like, hello.
Because at that point, you are giving people you don't like control over you.
Exactly. And the real losers are the actual fans of these franchises because they're not actual great games, right? The real losers are the fans because they didn't actually get what they wanted because everyone had some type of agenda and ruined it for everybody else. That's my point.
What are you doing here? It's like the Ultimate Warrior on the ring rope.
This is my war dance.
Right.
Well, the response has definitely been overwhelming. Like I said, breaking single player records on Steam. It'll be interesting to see if IGN actually does go in, respond, or make any sort of retraction or any sort of statement being like, yeah, we kind of messed up on that. And sorry about portraying an entire narrative around it. Like I said, these stories are not just black and white. There's a lot of layers associated with it. When these are layers that we get to talk about on a day-to-day basis. So it's important to kind of make the whole burger along the way, all right, let's go to something that burger.
But before we move off on this,
yes,
you have to understand what hypnotism is, right? People think hypnotism is I dangle a watch in front of your face and then you bark like a dog. No. Hypnotism is a real thing, but what it is it's basically hitting like nerves. It's plucking reflex actions. So if you're just averse to being told what to do, reverse psychology is kind of another way of saying hypnotism. So if they're telling you don't eat turds and you're like, I'll show you, I'll eat a turd, right? You've been hypnotized. Don't let them hypnotize you in this way, because that's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening there. If your reaction is not a sincere expression of your enjoyment of the game, you're a slave to what someone else wants you to do, period. Even if you think you're doing the opposite of what they want you to do, which you may not be, by the way.
Radial Drago came in and says, I think the problem is that it needed to be said at all. Politics, regardless or where it comes from, shouldn't be the basis of your reviews.
Exactly. How many reviews out there are about the politics of this game or Hogwarts Legacy or some other like really well, established video game? What about the gameplay? What about the story? No. Okay. No one talks this shit. Drives me nuts.
Student says, it's at least more appealing than Ninja Theory's version. But personally, I'd rather wait later for a sale. Since there will be bugs day one. That's true. There's always some sort of adjustment.
What was that terrible Ninja Gaiden ripoff from the 360 era?
The 360 one or the
because was it Ninja Blade? Was that it? That horrible ripoff of Ninja Gaiden? Remember that?
There were some very bad Ninja Gaiden clones.
Oh man, that was unplayable, that game.
All right. Also, wow, Retromeister came in with the $50 super chat. Says, hail scrollers. On the topic of backyard sports, there's an old Cartoon Network spy show called Codename Kids Next Door, which was the most revolutionary piece of animation to date. Oh, nice. It covered many hot topics compared to any show and was fun to watch. Well, Retromeister, thank you so much for that insane support. We appreciate that greatly. And thank you. Let's go.
Okay, I actually need to pull up this one right here from Jessica. Very little, if any, people bought Hogwarts because of the internet drama. Razor and Blabs are lacking all knowledge on the game sales. They keep inserting their unqualified opinions and objective facts. Okay, so that is a false news, fake news.
Did you just give us, hey, Blabs, give us a
fake news.
You are fake news.
You are fake news. I can't do it. I'm a woman. But anyway, yes. I actually researched this. And if you watch my video, you will know that I said the biggest reason people picked up Hogwarts Legacy was because it was a Harry Potter Wizarding World video game. And there hasn't been one in like a decade plus. That was the biggest factor for it. However, if you actually see people talk about this game, they're like, yeah, it was okay, but I dropped it after like 2 weeks. not a whole lot of people were like, yes, I'm gonna go replay this game for the millionth time because it lacks a lot of things. Anyway,
Well,
watch my video and you'll see it. 30 minutes worth.
I'll say this about that idea that most games have about a 2-week shelf life on them, right?
Yeah.
And you're not
like a
wrong.
month at the most for
Right.
the really
Yeah,
big ones.
true, but like everyone's like, I'm gonna replay this for every house because there's 4 of them and I'm gonna try it. But like it's the same outcome every single time. The replayability of that specific game was not good. There was no consequences whatsoever in that game.
Right, but people absolutely did buy that game just to stick it to the man. They're like that was the number one sold game. Yes, absolutely.
You know what? Let me mitigate that just a little bit. I feel like that was more a phenomenon, not so much in the sales, but in the streaming, which probably did drive sales, to be fair. But I feel like there were people who streamed that game just to stick it to SJWs or whatever.
Oh yeah, there were people coming in all over on Twitch watching and just because they were so interested, and also they wanted to ruin the story for everyone who was streaming on Twitch. Like there were people who knew the ending, they would come in and be like, this happens, but like so many people tuned in on Twitch.
Right. And when you look at like Hogwarts, someone mentioned there's over 8,000 people playing Hogwarts Legacy right now on Steam. Like, yeah, so right now there are 8,000 people playing that game on Steam right now. Now the game is over a year old. It was released.
But at correction, though, there was a big update that happened in the last few months where people were able to access a new quest. That was probably, in my opinion, the best thing about the entire game, an exclusive PlayStation 5 quest that was now on PC a year and a half later. So that is also why people are still playing that game, because of the new quest.
There is something to this, though. I mean, obviously, a game that's been out for over a year, you don't expect it to carry the number of, its all-time peak. It had, 500,000 people playing it at one time. To put that in perspective, Hogwarts Legacy was a viral moment, and Black Myth Wukong is 4x that. Yeah. It's 4 times Hogwarts Legacy, specifically on Steam. So, and right now, that game, Black Myth Wukong it still has over 1 million people playing it. Now, it's seen a tremendous drop off in the last 6 hours. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with people going to work and things like that. And we'll see it pop back up this evening when people go back and they sit down in front of their PCs or whatever. So, well,
is there a multiplayer component to it? Because that tends to be what keeps games like this go. If it's just the single player, that's just going to drop off naturally. That happens to even the most popular games, right?
I don't believe there's a multiplayer element to it. I believe it's just a single player experience. So